Hi there, my name's Naima Tryman, and I just most recently finished doing a video blog series based on my memoir, Praying for Peace, A Journey to Serenity. What I did was go chapter by chapter, just kind of outlining some of the things that happened in my life that I talked about in my book, to just kind of lay some groundwork about who I am, what I've been through, and where I've come from. You can find that series in a playlist on my YouTube channel entitled Praying for Peace. And so now that that's done, it's time to kind of move on to where I went from there. At the end of chapter 15, I had just taken a trip to New York and gotten drunk and woke up having been robbed of pretty much everything: my money, my ID, my cell phone. And when it comes to addiction, you'll hear people talk about reaching a bottom, and for me, that was a bottom for me. Truth be told, the steps back to some type of normalcy were difficult, and it was a long road back. But that was kind of the beginning of my renewal. So it wasn't the end of my drinking, but it was the end of my depressive drinking, if that makes any sense. And so that I don't refer to that as my sobriety date, but I do refer to it as the time of my spiritual awakening, because I woke up the next day and I realized that there wasn't much between me and death, that I was basically begging for death. I was in a lot of pain. I didn't know which way to turn. The only thing that seemed to make it any way better was drinking, and all that really did was numb me. But the drinking was now becoming problematic, and I really didn't know where to turn. So I just started with the basics. Depression had completely taken a grip on my life. I didn't shower very often. I barely brushed my teeth. My house was disgusting. I mean, I had my whole life. My girlfriend and I were living together, and we had basically had our whole lives in this one room of a one-bedroom studio. So we had a small room, a small kitchen, a small bathroom, and that was it. And I mean, just piles and piles of just clothes and crap and papers. And I had a dog that I didn't take care of, and I used to leave him outside for just weeks. I never brought him inside, and I wouldn't even walk him. So he was tied up right outside the back door, and he would defecate all over the place, and I would rarely clean it up. It was disgusting. So the first thing I did was, I needed to get organized and to get clear. So I went to work that day, and I walked down the street and I bought a notebook, and I decided to just start journaling. Every day I just started to pour out my thoughts and emotions and feelings on paper, and I mean that was cleansing in some way. But what I also did was I made a grid in the back of it with really basic things that things that we take for granted. Brush your teeth, eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat dinner, take a shower. Just the most basic of things, to just try and organize myself, because I had just completely lost track of how to be alive, how to be a person, how to be a grown up. And as simple as that sounds, it was a huge catalyst for me to be able to turn things around. I also resolved to go to at least one AA meeting every day. I was here and there about how I felt about AA meetings, but at this point I realized that I was no longer in a place where I could afford to choose. Picking and choosing the way that I wanted to institute my recovery or live my life was killing me. So I started going to AA meetings every day, and the other thing I resolved to do was to work out. I had shied away from the gym. I was an athlete growing up. I was a college athlete, and now I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. I was drinking every day and smoking weed. The gym scared me, because it was like, I'm going to get in there, and whatever I'm able to do is going to be a shell of what I used to do, and that's just going to disparage me more. So I talked myself out of that, and it was time to get back in the gym, to learn to start taking care of myself. At the time, my license was expired and suspended because I couldn't pay for tickets that turned into suspension, and I had a car that was dysfunctional anyway. The car didn't work, so I had to take care of junking that also. So I walked up to the YMCA. Fortunately for me, as a firefighter, one of the perks was that the local YMCA offered a free membership to police and fire members. So I was able to go up there and work out for free. And, I knew that I wasn't going to be running 3 or 4 miles or, lifting a ton of weight or anything. But, the thing was to get there. I was taking these long strides when I tried to get sober and falling short all the time. And so I had to chunk it down. I had to get it, to somewhere where it was manageable. So for me, the goal was just getting there. Just get to the Y. Even if you just walk on a treadmill for 5 minutes, even if you only lift 2 weights, even if you can only sit in the sauna for 30 seconds, like whatever it is, do something for yourself today. Don't sit around and shortchange yourself on what you're capable of doing, because that's the only way you're gonna find your life again. It's the only way that you're gonna recover. So I walked up to the Y, and it's incredible when I look back over my life at the ways in which, growing up, there wasn't a whole lot of spirituality in my house, but there were 2 placards on the wall in the kitchen. One was the Serenity Prayer, and the other was the poem Footprints. And that poem basically talks about a person that's walking along the beach, and he sees two sets of footprints. He's looking back over at his life, and the 2 sets of footprints are his and God's. And then he realizes, every time things really seemed hard, there's only one set of footprints, like it's like you abandoned me in my darkest hour. And God says, no, that was when I was carrying you. That's why there's only one set of footprints. And I looked at that, and I recognized that in my life. And I also realized, there's this saying, if you take 1 step towards God, He'll take 2 towards you. And so much of it is just in the effort, and it's in productive effort. Because the fact of the matter is, I've been trying. This was now 2007. I've been trying to get sober since 2005. Excuse me. And, but I was kind of just doing things my way and fighting against the things that I didn't want to do. But when I took effort in the direction of things that I was resistant to, it was amazing the way things unfolded for me. So I went to the Y and I worked out, and I was on my way home. And something else that had kind of happened is, I really kind of skated my way through college, and not well. At this point, I had failed out. My GPA was a .474. I did just enough, but I had stopped reading somewhere in middle school. When I was a kid, I loved to read, and when my grades started to slip and my father's solution for that was to punish me, my reaction was to stop reading and to stop trying. So there's a used bookstore in Montclair, right off one of the main roads that you could see from that main road. And as I was walking home, I saw the bookstore, and something just compelled me to go inside. I can't say what it is or what it was, but I went inside and just started walking around. And within the first couple of minutes, this title jumped out at me, The Road Less Traveled. And I read the back of it. It had to do with spiritual awakening and getting your life together in a lot of respects. And so I bought it. It was a used bookstore. It was only $5.50, and turned out to be the best investment that I ever made in my life. And so I started to read it intently. And I also, since I was writing anyway in my journal, I'd been wanting to write my life story down for a long time, and I decided that it was time to do that too. I had broken my neck to be drunk. I would walk barefoot through a snowstorm if I thought that's what I had to do to get to a bottle. And I knew that I had to put that much effort into my recovery. So I poured myself into writing. I just started from the beginning. I got on the computer and I started writing every single day. I would write when nobody was home. I lived underneath my mother. I was using her computer, so I would do it in the daytime when nobody was home, so I could focus. From 8 to 4 every day I would write, and then at night I would go downstairs and I would read The Road Less Traveled and do these puzzle books just to kind of keep my mind busy. And the first line of The Road Less Traveled has become fairly famous now. It says life is difficult, and then obviously it goes into what that means, but those words rang in my head so powerfully because one of the worst parts of what I had become was this belief that life was unfair, and I've told my story now, and if you look through the blogs that I've done or order the book, I mean, things were pretty unfair. I had a lot of things happen to me. I mean, I got into some drunk driving accidents, but the worst accident I ever had was completely sober. And it was because of a get well balloon, and just how unfair, and people that were murdered and died in car accidents, and life was hard, and I had gotten to this point where I was just kind of like, this is just how it's going to be. This is just my lot in life, and it sucks, and it's not fair, and I have every right to drink my life away. And the road less traveled completely dispelled that for me, and it made me realize that life is difficult for everybody. It's one of the greater truths of life that's what life is about. It's about challenges. It's about problem solving. Otherwise, if things go smooth, then what is life? What is the point of being here? And so I started to apply the principles. I'm going to cut this blog short, and in my next one I'll go into the 4 basic principles that I learned in the first section of The Road Less Traveled that really, really started to change the way that I looked at my life. As I said before, in prior attempts at sobriety, I hadn't really done any work. I just stopped drinking. But something causes this discomfort with yourself that you can only find any kind of or any semblance of comfort in inebriation. Something causes that, and unless you get to the root of that, you're always going to fall back to that. And that started to be outlined for me in The Road Less Traveled, and I'll talk about that in my next blog. But for now, the message, loud and clear, is that if you're somewhere where you don't seem to be able to get it right, maybe your steps are too big. You can only do what you can do, and if you just do that much and do it with all of your heart, God will meet you halfway. Things will start to fall in line. Opportunities will arise for you, and some circumstances will change. And one of my favorite quotes from Dr. King is that you don't need to see the whole staircase. You just take the first couple of steps. So if you're somewhere in your life right now where you feel like nothing's working, stop for a second and take a deep breath. Pay attention to what is manageable for you and tackle that. The serenity prayer has become paramount in my life, and it really, really rings true in everything that I attempt in this life. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Take care.